So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over a series of past exam questions from the Geometry and Measure section of the Foundation syllabus. Now in the description you'll find a link giving you access to the questions, which I strongly recommend you have an attempt at before watching through me go through the answers to each of the questions, just so that you can see what you know and what you don't know. I'll also include a link to all the lessons covering each of the topics in case you find yourself at a loss on any of the questions. Now, before we get started working through the audit, let's just a reminder that if you're wanting a copy of these questions, which I strongly recommend that you do, have an attempt at before watching this video as we go through the answers, just so that you can see how much of these particular questions you are actually comfortable with. Now, I'll also include a topic breakdown so you can see what topic each question refers to, so that if you do find it a bit challenging or not sure what to do, you can refer back and review that topic. Now for question 1, it says draw a parallel line to the line below. Now for this, there are a couple of ways in which you could answer this question. Now one, you could do it freehand, but the important thing is that you need to be accurate. Now it is only worth 1 mark, so I would say you'd get basically a minute to answer this question to get 4 marks. But what you want to do with your ruler is on any point of the line, make a distance in centimeters, something that's easy for you. So let's say 2 centimeters. So I find 2 centimeters, I make a little dash, and then somewhere else on the line I do exactly the same, make a little dash, and then what I then want to do is then join those 2 points up. Now I've chosen 2 centimeters, you could pick absolutely any, but basically the distance between the line that's drawn and the line you've drawn needs to be the same. Now there is a way you can accurately do this with a compass. Now how you do that is you set your compass up correctly. So again, to set your compass up correctly, make sure that when you close your compass that the pencil tip and the pin are as close as possible, obviously using a sharp pencil. And then what you then want to do is basically find a comfortable length for you to draw an arc. You draw an arc, and then somewhere else on the line, doesn't matter if the arcs intersect, you want to do exactly the same. And then what you then want to do is carefully find the tips of each of those arcs and draw a straight line, like so. And you can see that that line there would be parallel. But again, any of those things would be absolutely fine. The length of your line that you draw doesn't need to be a specific line, just a line needs to be drawn, but obviously you try and only draw one. Now the next one, it then says draw a line perpendicular to the line below. Now for this you are going to need to use a protractor, but before you do that, what you first want to do is pick a point on the line. So I'm just going to pick this random point here, and then with my protractor I'm going to put the center of the protractor on that dot that I've just drawn, and what I'm going to do is find 90 degrees, which is just there, and just put a little dash there. Then with a ruler or the side of your protractor, as long as it's straight, you then want to draw a line from the mark you've just made to that dot you made, and that there will be 90 degrees, and there we go. Now moving on to question 2, it says here are 5 flags, and for 2A it says which 3 flags have a line of symmetry. So for this, what you want to do is in any particular order, well, A has got a line of symmetry, which is here and there. B hasn't got a line of symmetry, C hasn't got a line of symmetry, D has, and so does E. Then for B it says which 2 flags do not have rotational symmetry. Well, A does have rotational symmetry, B does have rotational symmetry, C doesn't, and E doesn't, and E does. For question 2C it says which flag has rotational symmetry but no line of symmetry, and that is going to be B. Now for question 3, it's asking us to sketch a triangle or here is a sketch of triangle ABC as shown, and the question is asking us in the space below, complete an accurate drawing of the triangle ABC. Now when it comes to constructing this particular triangle, this is a SAS triangle. So let me just get a pen here. So this is an SAS triangle. Now, in terms of what's been given to us, so if I just move this up, then here I've got the side of AB, which is already drawn for me as 11 centimeters. So that's one side already done for me. Now for this, what I need to do is to first grab my protractor, which is somewhere And here it is. And so here from A, what I need to do is measure the angle of 37 degrees. So again, center of your protractor is there on the edge and on the point of A. And then what I then want to do is using the inside numbers. Now the reason why I'm using the inside numbers is one, because it's an acute angle, but also the line that has been drawn for me starts at 0 using the inside numbers. So I then need to find 37, which is there. So make a little dash, and then with a ruler, what you then want to do is draw a line from A through that point. Now don't worry too much about the length of that line that you draw, but this angle here is 37 degrees. Now the next thing for me then to do is to get my ruler and now measure 8 centimeters from the point A along the line that I've just drawn. So here I can see 8 centimeters is there, so I pull a little dash, and then what I then want to do is draw a line from B to that point I've just made, in which I end up with something that looks like, oh, just need to continue the line, like so. And here I've got my correctly drawn triangle. Now again, please make sure you do not rub out any lines that you've got, even if it looks a bit like a wigwam. If it doesn't necessarily look like a triangle, do not rub out any construction lines you may have drawn, because that could go against you and knock some marks off. So again, if you have drawn construction lines, do not worry. So if your triangle looks like this, again, it's absolutely perfect as long as you can see a triangle where one side is 11 centimeters and one side is 8 centimeters with an interior angle of 37, and it resembles the triangle ACB as required, then that is going to be absolutely fine. Then moving on to our next question. So here, let's just have this on screen. So we just move this down. It says you will need a ruler and a pair of compasses to answer this question. The diagram shows a plan of a garden. The hedge DE is 20 meters along, and here we've got our scale drawing of the diagram. Now notice how the diagram does say that it is drawn to scale. So here it says that for the set of instructions, it says that a tree is to be planted so that it is 20 meters from D and the same distance from the wall as it is from the fence. Construct the position of the tree on the plan. Now for this first bit of information, what we need to do is draw a circle with radius of 20 meters, which is basically DE, from D. So that's what we need to do for that. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the diagram down. So I'm going to grab my pair of compasses. Now I haven't been given a scale, so I don't know what 20 centimeters is in centimeters, but I do know that this length here is 20 meters. So what I need to do is, with my set of compasses, put the pin on D and put the pencil so that it crosses E. So just there. Then what I then want to do is then correctly use my set of compasses and draw an arc like so. Again, you might want to extend it, but it should look something that looks like that. Now for the next set of instructions, where it says the same distance from the wall as from the fence, for this what I need to do is an angle bisector. Now for this, in terms of the angle bisector between the fence and the wall. So to do an angle bisector, what you need to do is, first of all, set your compass so that is at a comfortable measuring length. So that's going to be absolutely fine for me. I'm going to put my pin on this corner here. I'm just going to mark an arc on the fence and the wall. If you want to do like a proper arc, that's absolutely fine, but it is not essential. Now the key thing with this next step is do not alter your compass. So from this, I'm then going to put the pin on one of the intersection points and draw an arc in the middle. Do exactly the same for the second point, and you should find that you get a cross. Then from this, what I then want to do is grab a straight edge, and from the angle to that cross, you then want to draw a straight line like so. And what I'm looking for the answer to this question is, where does the arc that I've drawn meet the angle bisector? And it is at this point here. So this is where the tree needs to be. So I'm just going to label that as tree. And at that point there. And again, with loci questions, you do not under any circumstance want to rub out any constructions that you've done, because that acts as you're working out. Now moving on to question 5, it says circle the size of angle X. As you can see, we've got angles around a point, and angles around a point add up to 360. So all I need to do is do 360 minus 50 minus 60 which gives me an answer of 250 degrees, so I need to circle the third option. Then for question 6, it says J and K are ships, P is a port and J is due south of P. Angle JPK is 56 degrees, JP is equal to KP, and the question is asking us to work out the bearing of J from K. So K is our starting point and J is our end point. So it's always good when these bearing questions to always mark what it is you're actually trying to find. So what I'm trying to find is this bearing here, which as you can see is a reflex angle. So I'm looking for a reflex angle. So from this we can see that as JP is equal to KP, that the triangle you can see on the screen is a isosceles triangle, which therefore means that if this angle here is 56, then to work out the other two angles I need to do 180 minus 56 and divide that by 2 because I've got two of the angles. So that gives me an answer of 62. So that means that this angle here is 62 and this angle here is 62. So the next thing for me then to know is what this angle here is. Now as you can see that as north and PJ is parallel, because they're both representative of the north line, that this then represents what was formerly known as a Z angle, which is now more formally known as an alternate angle. So this angle here is going to be 56 because it is alternate. So what I can then do is I can then work out the pink angle. So to work out the pink angle, all I've got to do is 360 minus 56 minus 62, and that's going to give me an answer of 242 degrees. So just got to check, is that a 3-digit number? Are we going from north? Well, yes we are. So the answer then is 242 degrees. Moving on to question 7, it says that a rhombus is cut along the diagonals to make 4 triangles. Which of the 3 statements are correct for any rhombus? And we need to tick the 3 boxes. So for this, are all 4 triangles right angled? Well, yes they are, because as you can see we've got a straight line here, and halving that angle by 2 is going to be 90. So, and that's the same applies to the other triangles. So the 4 triangles are right angle triangles. All 4 triangles are isosceles. Well, that's not necessarily true, because although this side is equal to this side, we don't know about those diagonals. So here that is not going to be the case. All 4 triangles are congruent. Well, that is going to be true because all triangles are going to be the same. And the area of the rhombus is equal to 4 times the area of one triangle. Well, if all the triangles are congruent and the 4 triangles are made up of the rhombus, then that is going to be true. So the correct answers that we need to tick are the first, third and fourth statement. Moving on to question 8, it says this shape is made from 2 triangles and 4 congruent parallelograms. For each statement, tick the correct box. So it says that the triangles are equilateral. So for this, it could be equilateral because we don't know what this length here is, but we definitely know that those 2 sides are equal. This side here, however, is a bit of a mystery, so this could be true. For B, it says the triangles are congruent. Well, let's have a look. So going back to the triangles, well, we know that this side is going to be equal to this side, which is going to be equal to this side, which is going to be equal to this side. And the reason for that is because we know that we've got congruent parallelograms. So those sides are going to be the same. Now, if they are congruent parallelograms, then this angle here is going to be the same as this angle here, which therefore means that this angle here is going to be the same as this angle here. So by the proof of congruent triangles, we've got a side angle side. So this must be true. And again, the reason for that is because we've showed that a side, 2 sides and an angle are the same on both those 2 triangles. So moving on to question 9, it says this triangle is isosceles, and the question is asking us to work out the angles of 2 possible triangles. So for the first one, we could say that this is going to be the unique angle in which these 2 sides are going to be equal. So to work out what this angle and this angle is, what I need to do is do 180 minus 70, which is 110, divide that by 2, and that gives me 55. So this angle could be 55 and so could that one. So one possible triangle is 55 and 55. Now let's just assume that if I just get rid of this, so now let's assume that these 2 sides are the same. So that means that this angle here must be 70. So then to work out what this angle here is, I've got to do 180 minus 70 minus 70, which equals 40. So another set of combinations that this triangle could be, if it's isosceles, is 70, 40 and 70. So again, you can write those angles in any particular order, but as long as you're writing the pairs correctly, then that should be good enough to get you the 3 marks. Moving on to question 10, it says reflect the triangle in the line of x equals 2. So first of all, what we need to do first is mark where x equals 2 is, which is this line here. Because again, x equal 2 means a straight line that only crosses the x-axis at 2. So this is x equals 2. Then all that's left for me to do is reflect the triangle. So my 3 points are going to be here. And like I said, what you want to try and do is make sure that you're using a ruler. So let me just take my sweet time to draw this triangle neatly. So that's one line. And then finishing it off. Like so. It's always good practice to make sure that you leave the reflection line. Make sure you mark it. It doesn't need to be dotted. It could be a straight line, solid line. That's absolutely fine. Moving on to question 10b, it says rotate the kite 90 degrees anti-clockwise about 0, 0. So here is my center of rotation. We're going anti-clockwise, so we're going in this direction. Now again, you might want to use tracing paper for this, or you might want to do it just by using your general skills. But the points that you should have should look something like this. And, oh, not there. And again, doing this very, and again, just a reminder that you should be using a ruler. Now I'm not doing good practice, but I don't want this video going too long. And it should look something like that. And there we go. So then moving on to question 11, it says which shape is similar to x? So here we're just looking for an enlargement, either bigger or smaller, that resembles x. So if I just zoom out so we can see all 4 options, of course it's going to reset, so let me just scroll back. There we go. So we're looking for which of these shapes is similar to x, and the correct answer you should mark is going to be C. So moving on to question 12, it says describe fully the single transformation that maps triangle A to B. So for this, we are going from A to B. So we're going from the big triangle to the small triangle. Now, as you can see, we've got a change in sign. So the size, so it's going to be an enlargement. So that's going to be worth 1 mark. Then when describing enlargement, we need to know the scale factor and we need to know the center. Now to work out the scale factor, it's the side of the new shape, which is 2, over the same side on the original shape, which is 6. And if we simplify that fraction, we get a third. So the scale factor is a third. Next, then what we need to do is then find the center. Now to find the center, all we need to do is join the corresponding edges and see where they cross. Now, technically you could do it for all 3 points of the triangle, but generally speaking 2 should be enough. And I can think that I can just about mark out where that point is going to be. So let me just, it's a bit more awkward doing it on here. And I can make out that my center of the enlargement is going to be at this point here, which is at the coordinate of 5, 1. And again, you get 1 mark for each bit of information that you write. Moving on to question 13, it says this circle has a center of C. It says W, X and Y are points on the circle and WY is a straight line. Tick 1 box for each statement. So for this, WY is a diameter. Well, it is the diameter simply because we've got a straight line that goes through the center. So that is going to be true. WX is a radius, so WX is not the radius, so that is false. the shaded section is a sector. Well, it's not, because it's a segment. And the arc XY is part of the circumference, which it is. So that is true. So the correct statements you should be ticking is true, false, false, and true. Moving on to question 14, it says that ABC is an isosceles triangle. AB equals AC and BC is parallel to the x-axis, which basically means that this line here is straight. So then from this, what we can then do is, and the question is asking us to work out the coordinates of B. Now for this, what we need to do is first of all mark on the axes the coordinates. So looking at A, this point here is 6 and this point here is 9. And looking at C, this point here is 10, and on the y-axis this point here is 1. Now in terms of looking at the coordinates, well, this is what we're trying to find, so for B. Now as you can see, it's parallel to the x-axis, so the y-ordinate is going to be the same as C, so that's definitely going to be a 1. So the next thing for me to find is what the x-ordinate is going to be. Now looking at the distance between A and C, or the horizontal distance, we know that this distance here is +4, which therefore means that this length here must also be +4. So to work out what this point here is, I'm just going to do 6 take away 4, which is 2. So the coordinate of B is going to be 2, 1. Then moving on to question 15, it says that a pyramid has a square base. Each of the four sloping edges has a length of 10 centimeters. The total length of all 8 edges is 68 centimeters. Work out the area of the square base. So for this, to work out the area of the square base, I need to know what one of the sides are. Now, as you can see, it says that the total length of all the 8 edges are 68 centimeters rather. So here, if we know that the slanted sides are all 10, like if I just get rid of this orange line here, so here we know that the total is 68, the orange lengths are 10 each, so 68 take away 40 gives me 28. So this is the total of the square edges. So that's going to give me the total of each of these 4 sides here. So that equals 4 sides. So therefore one side is going to equal 28 divided by 4, which equals 7 centimeters. So once I know that, I can then work out what the area of that square base is going to be. So the area of a square is the width times the length. So it's 7 times 7, which equals 49 centimeters square. Then moving on to question 16, it says this solid shape is made from identical cubes. On the grid, draw the side elevation of L and R. Well, for this, and again, using a ruler, yours should be a lot more accurate than mine. You should end up for L having something that looks like this. And for R, just a reflection that looks like that. It then says how many cubes must be added to the shape to make the cuboid. So looking at this, if we count the number of cubes here, we can see that we've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 cubes. And if we look at this cuboid and we work out the total, well, that's going to be 2 times 2 times 7, which equals 28. So then if I take away the 2 numbers, so it's going to be 28, take away 13, which leaves me with the answer of 15 cubes. Then for question 17, it says the front elevation, side elevation and plan of a solid are all the same as shown. Write down the name of the solid. So for this, I would say if all the side faces are going to be the same, then it's going to be a cube. Now they would accept cuboid because a cuboid is a cube. It's just with cuboid could have multiple sides. So if you wrote cube or cuboid, you would get the single mark. Then it says for B, the front elevation, side elevation and plan of a solid are all the same as shown. write down the name of the solid, and that is therefore going to be a sphere. Moving on to question 18, it says that Jane wants to make 4 jars of jam. How many grams of plums does she need? So for this, we can see that the recipe is for 8 jars and Jane wants to make 4 jars. So we just need to divide the ingredients by 2. So we're just looking at the plums, which is 1.2, and want the units in grams. So it's going to be, well, 1.2 kilograms is equal to 1200 grams. And then we just need to divide that by 2, which gives us an answer of 600 grams. If you divided 1.2 by 2 and you get 0.6 and then converted it into grams, then that would be absolutely fine. So the answer then is 600 grams. It then says that Jane has 860 grams of caster sugar. How much more caster sugar will she need to make 4 jars of jam? State the units of your answer. So again, she only wants to make 4 jars. And so let's have a look at how much caster sugar she's going to need. Well, in terms of the caster sugar, well, for 8 jars, she needs 1.8. So for 4, she's going to need 0.9 kilograms. Let me just double check. Yep. So that's for 4 jars. And 0.9 kilograms is 900 grams. So if she's got 860, she needs 900. It's going to be 900 minus 860, which is 40 grams. And it says we need to state our units, or you could state 0.04 kilograms. So any of those 2 answers would be fine for this particular question. Moving on to question 19, it says that here is a map of a town, and for part A, it's saying which place is exactly northwest from the station. So the station is here. If I draw my north line, northwest is going in this direction here. So if I just follow that through, you can see that I end up at the library. It then says circle the 3-figure bearing from the monument from the park. So the park is where we're starting, and the monument is where we end. So if I find the park, which is here, and the monument, which is here, so if I draw my north line going in a clockwise direction, the angle of this is going to be 180 degrees. So I just need to circle that second option. It then says what is the distance in meters from the cinema to the station. Now for this, it really does depend on whether you are working from A4, whether you're working in A5, depending on your photocopying of this particular paper, whether it's a booklet or whether you're doing this alone. So here, what we need to do is measure the distance from the cinema to the station. So if I measure, let's use a different colour pen. So if I measure this distance here, so for C, measure the red line, and I would probably go for the fact that we're working in centimetres, because I think the scale is in centimetres. So measure the red line in centimetres, and then what you then need to do is multiply the answer, whatever answer you get, by 200 metres. And if you're measuring it on A4, then they would accept any answer of the line being between 5.6 centimetres to 6 centimetres. And if you multiply that answer by 200, they'll accept any answer between 1120 metres to 1200 metres for part C. Moving on to question 19D, it says why might the shortest walking distance from the cinema to the station be greater than your answer in C? And the question for that is that it may not be a straight path. So something along the lines that there may not be a direct route that goes straight from the station to the cinema will get you the single mark for that. Moving on to question 20, it says each shape below has the area of 24 square centimetres. Complete the missing lengths. So to work out the area of the rectangle, the area is equal to length times the width. So here I've got 6 times something equals 24, and so if I divide 24 by 6, I get an answer of 4. Then for the area of a triangle, it's base times height divided by 2. So here we've got 24 equals the base, which is what we don't know, so let me just call that b, times 16 divided by 2. So if I do a bit of rearranging, 48 equals, we'll take the 2 over to the other side, equals 16 times b, and b equals 48 divided by 16, which gives me an answer of 3. Moving on to question 21, it says the diagram shows a trapezium, and for part A it's asking me to work out the area of the trapezium. Well, the area of trapezium as a formula is a plus b times h divided by 2, where a is the a and b are the two parallel sides and h is the height. So substituting numbers in, I get 15 plus 30 multiplied by 20, all divided by 2. So 45 times 20 divided by 2, and working that out gives me an answer of 450. It then says the trapezium is the cross section of the prism. Work out the volume of the prism. Well, to work out the volume of any prism, it's the cross sectional area, which is 450, multiplied by the length. So it's going to be 450 multiplied by 95, and if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 42,750. Moving on to question 22, it says here is a circle touching a square. The area of the square is 64 square centimeters. Work out the area of the circle and give your answer in terms of pi. So if the area of the square is 64, then that means that the length of the square must be 8. So 64 square rooted equals 8. So this distance here is 8. So therefore, if the diameter of the circle is 8, then that means that the radius is going to be 4. And to work out the area of a circle, it's pi times r squared. So it's going to be pi times 4 squared, which equals 16 pi. Then moving on to question 23a, it says a circle has a radius of 4.2 centimeters. Work out the length of the circumference. Well, the circumference is equal to pi times diameter. So if the radius is 4.2, the diameter is going to be 8.4, and so the circumference is going to be pi times 8.4, and typing that into my calculator, I get an answer of 8.4 pi, and let me just type that in as a decimal. I get an answer of 26.38937.829, and the question is just asking for one decimal point, so it's going to be 26.4 centimeters. Alternatively, what I could have done is used 2 pi r, in which it would have given me the same answer. Then for B, it says the circle below has a center of O. Draw a sector of the circle. So for this, all you need to do is, with a ruler, is draw a slice from the center O. So again, it could be absolutely any size. So imagine that you're drawing a pie chart, and all you want to do is to draw a slice. And the key thing you just need to remember is just make sure that the angle of your sector is at the center. But again, any size slice would be fine. Then moving on to question 24, it says here are two solids, and we've got a cylinder with a radius of 4, height of 10, and we've got a hemisphere with a radius of 6, and the question's asking which solid has the greater volume. So for this, all we need to do is use the formula now. For here, for the volume of a cylinder, the formula is pi r squared times h. So substituting those numbers in, I've got the radius of 4, height of 10, so it's going to be pi times 4 squared times 10. And if I type that all into my calculator, I'm going to get an answer of 160 pi, or I'm going to get an answer of 502.654. Then working out the volume of the hemisphere, and again I've got the formula here, so the radius, all I've got to do is substitute r equals 6, so the volume of the hemisphere is equal to 2/3 times pi times 6 cubed. And if I type that onto my calculator, I get an answer of 144 pi, or as a decimal, 452.389. So all I've then got to do is compare the two values, and as you can see, that the cylinder has the greater volume. Now moving on to question 25, it says the diagram shows a proportion of a circle with a radius of 7 centimeters, and the question is asking us to work out the perimeter of the shape. So for this, we've got three sides of this shape. So this side here is 7, and this side here is also going to be 7 because those sides are the radius of the circle. So the only thing that's left for me to work out is what 3/4 of the circumference is going to be. So to work out this orange bit, it's going to be 3/4. Now remember that the formula to work out the circumference of a circle is pi times d, or 2 pi r. So again, whichever formula you want to use, I'm going to go for pi times d. So we've got pi times, well, the radius is 7, diameter is going to be 14. And if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of 21/2 pi, which is equal to, and again, we'll just type that into my calculator to get a decimal answer. I get an answer of 32.98672286, and if I add that to 2 lots of 7, I get an answer of 46.98672286. So rounding up, I get an answer of roughly 47. Now again, depending on your rounding and whether you've used pi or you've used 3.14, your answer may be slightly different, but again, because there's no mention of rounding, you can either round your answer up or you can use your exact answer. So there will be a range. So if you get an answer very close and you want to make sure that you still get the full 3 marks, please do check with the mark scheme. Moving on to question 26, it says A and B are similar shapes. B is an enlargement of A with a scale factor of 1.5. And the question is asking us to work out the values of X, H and W. So for this, we know that in similar shapes, the internal angles don't change. So here, X is going to be 54 degrees. So to work out W, well, W is going from the small shape to the big shape. So we're going from here to here, we've got to multiply by the scale factor, which is stated as being 1.5. So to work out W, I'm going to have to do from big to small, so it's going in the opposite direction. So actually, let me do H first. So H is going from the small shape to the big shape, so it's going to be 5 multiplied by 1.5, which gives me an answer of 7.5 centimeters. Then to get from W, we're going in the opposite direction. So here, the opposite of multiplying by 1.5 is divide by 1.5. So here, W is going to equal 9 divided by 1.5, which gives me an answer of 6 centimeters. Moving on to question 27, it says use Pythagoras' theorem to work out the value of X. So Pythagoras' theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. C is always the longest side, or the side that's opposite the right angle. So these are the two sides are going to be my A and B. So substituting those values into Pythagoras' theorem, we get 32 squared plus 60 squared equals x squared. Typing that all into my calculator, I get 4,624 equals x squared. So x is going to equal the square root of 4624. And typing that into my calculator, I get an answer of 68. Moving on to question 28, it says here is a right angle triangle. Use trigonometry to work out the size of angle x. So here it tells us to use trigonometry. So the first thing we'll do is label the sides. So x is my theta. 13 is opposite theta, so that's going to be O, and 16 is opposite the right angle, so that's going to be H. So the next thing for me to then do is decide which trig ratio do I use. Well, for this I'm going to use sine. So sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. So I've got sine x equals 13 divided by 16. Then to work out an angle, I've got to use the inverse of sine. So if I type all of that into my calculator, I should end up with an answer of 54.3 degrees, and that's to 1 decimal place. Now again, there's no mention of rounding, so if you struggle with your rounding, just copy the answer that's on your calculator. Moving on to question 29, it says circle the value of cos 90. Now again, this is using exact values of trig. So again, if either you know it by memory or whether you know it by graphs or whichever, it's a multiple choice question. But looking at the cos graph, it looks like this, and at 90 it is at 0. So the first one the answer we need to be circling is the first one. Moving on to question 30, it says here is a vector A, and it says circle the column vector that represents A. Now here we can see the arrows going down, so this is our starting point. So looking at the horizontal movement, we can see we're going 3 squares to the right, and then we're going 2 squares down. So we're looking for 3 minus 2, which is our third option. Then moving on to our last question, it says work out 3a plus b. So a is 2, 7, and b is 5 minus 2. So we want 3 lots of a plus 1 lot of b. So if we simplify this bit here first, so 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 7 is 21, and then we want to add that to 5 minus 2, in which 6 plus 5 is 11, and 21 plus minus 2, so that becomes a takeaway, and that's going to give me 19. So the correct answer we should have for this is 1119.